The U.S. election is coming up this November. It's the incumbent Donald Trump and the Republicans going up against presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden. Now, Mr. Biden has a new running mate in Kamala Harris. To talk more about this in more detail is American journalist Lisa Daftari joining me once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, what do we know about Harris outside of the fact that she spent some time going to Westmont High School in Montreal 4 decades ago?
Yeah, it seems like she's got a little bit of something for everyone, right? She presents herself as an Indian American, as an African American. She will present herself as a moderate, as a very, very left liberal. Her voting record speaks for itself. She has voted more liberally than Bernie Sanders, according to statistics. And she is no moderate. She is no moderate. She has very, very strong feelings on late term abortion. She has strong feelings on climate change. She thinks those who deny it should be held accountable. And the list goes on. So, they're trying to Trojan horse her into the American psyche. A lot of people compare her to Barack Obama in terms of being relatable, in terms of being that, kind of a grassroots liberal who came up on her own and became the person that she is. I think she can be compared to Barack Obama in the sense that she will try to appease any group that she's in front of. She will try to use her record in however way that she sees will benefit her. And the bottom line, Hal, is that here in the United States, we have such a divide between left and right. So the media will worship her, they will whitewash her, and I'm sure they've already whitewashed her all across Google, so you can't really find too many incriminating things. But just remember, she stood up against Joe Biden when he was accused of harassment, and she believed the accusers. So now she'll have to really answer to that if she is questioned about it.
That's the surprising part, the fact that she was so anti-Biden for the longest time, and all of a sudden they're the best of friends. How much do you think this will give the Democrats more credibility, having Kamala Harris as the running mate for Biden?
Look, you can look at it in one of two ways. Joe Biden said, I will choose a woman of color as my running mate. And a lot of people saw that as, wow, he's so progressive. He's going to choose a woman of color. But remember when Mitt Romney said, I have a binder full of women to choose from, meaning I have a list of women. And what are their qualifications? Are you just choosing her because she's a woman of color? Look, if anyone said that about me, I would be very, very upset. I would hope that my achievements would come before my skin color, my race, my religion, my political background, and my gender. So, I think that it depends on what lenses you have on in the United States. It really is not about facts anymore. Everything is politicized, and it's some rough times here.
Now, what did the recent polls show, Lisa? How close is the race between Trump and Biden right now?
Extremely close, with Biden having the advantage of a few points. Now, we have not gone to debating yet. We have not gone to really scrutinizing Biden and Harris. President Trump is really just fending for himself day in and day out. It looks like his achievements are buried, while the problems that we're having here in the country are emphasized and blamed on the president rather than blamed on science or on China or on tariffs or on whatever it may be. But they're doing a great job with the stimulus checks. They're doing a great job with doing what they can given the circumstances.
Let me ask you something. Will we actually see a debate between Biden and Trump? And the reason I ask that, some political pundits I've spoken with are concerned that there might be some dementia creeping in with Joe Biden.
Right. So I've always called this a Trump election. It's going to be people who want Trump and people who don't want Trump voting. Joe Biden's name is going to remain out of people's psyche, and the Democrats will want his name to stay out of the race for as long as possible because they want to win on the fact that he's not Donald Trump. He could be Mickey Mouse. He is going to use that to his advantage. And because of all the gaffes and because of the mistakes and because of the inability to have that recall that is necessary when you're running for political office, they're going to try to keep him out of the spotlight for as long as possible. On the flip side, they will want Kamala Harris on stage. They will want her to use
Right.
her savvy and her quick-witted responses. She did pretty well in the debates. And she didn't make it because her record, I think, was a challenge to her. But I think they will have this kind of flip-flopping between Biden and Harris, because on the one hand, they will want to highlight Harris, but they will want to hide Joe Biden.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. and Poland signed a deal whereby more American troops will be sent to Poland. Lisa, some 4,500 troops are already there, with another 1,000 on the way. The question is, why?
Right. So this is almost a kind of balancing of our assets in the region. As we move away from countries like Germany and Turkey, we will be focusing on countries that share our interests. We're living in a post-ally geopolitical world where our friends are those who share our interests, who share the responsibility of having a free Western Hemisphere and Eastern Hemisphere for that matter. So Donald Trump has done a great job, and his cabinet as well. Mike Pompeo is a wonderful Secretary of State, of really focusing in on who shares our interests, who are our friends, and we're gonna cozy up to them. They did the same thing by striking a deal between the UAE and Israel on Thursday. This was a wonderful deal that focused in on moderate, progressive countries that want to share in a global economy. They want to have free trade, and they want to keep their borders safe. So it's a win-win for all, and we're going to be parking some of our troops in Poland.
Belarus protesters gathered for the biggest ever opposition rally, Lisa, tens of thousands of them, demanding fair elections and wanting to stop the violence there.
Yeah, this is in the aftermath of what protesters are deeming as a fraudulent election, a power grab by the dictator there. He's been in power for decades, and they are trying to get rid of him. It's as simple as that. We're seeing this a lot around the world, where there's either a talk of an election, an upcoming election like here in the United States, or a past election where protesters are willing, ready, able, and they know that this is a last chance, or I should say a significant chance to make a difference, come out onto the streets, let their voices be heard. And in the case of Belarus, this is historic. We've never seen people come out like this. We haven't seen these numbers on the streets, and they mean business.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, Lisa, says he's offering military support to Belarus's embattled President Alexander Lukashenko.
Yeah, always there to lend a hand to a dictator. Putin's good for that, at least. Whether it's Bashar al-Assad or here in Belarus, he's made it known that he wants this guy in power, and he's willing to help him. And the leader in Belarus said, you know what, we're having an SOS moment here, so why don't you come and help us? The two have signaled to one another that they need help, and Putin has already offered to come in and stabilize.
The United Nations Security Council recently defeated a U.S. resolution to indefinitely extend the UN arms embargo on Iran. Now, the Trump administration only received support from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, isn't that awful? Think about this. We're looking to isolate the Iranian regime for their weapons program. So that means any punitive measures are meant to curb a nuclear program. And here you have the UN, this waste of perfectly great real estate in New York City that does nothing but reward countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia by putting them on human rights watches and women's committees, and then marginalizes countries like the U.S., like Israel, and writes them up for different types of human rights abuses and so on and so forth. So here we have a resolution that's put forth by the U.S. to extend the arms embargo. We have heard Arab nations, we have heard European nations support the U.S. on this verbally, only because they know that the Iranian regime is lying through their teeth about their weapons program, and it is a global effort to curb the Iranian regime and where they put their money into nefarious activities, whether it's their weapons program or into places like Iraq and Yemen and Syria, and killing innocent people through bombings and exporting terrorism of different sorts. But anyway, this measure was meant to curb that behavior, and the UN said, not today.
Arson balloons sparked dozens of fires near Gaza, and hundreds of people are rioting along the Gaza Strip, burning tires and setting off explosives. Lisa, the unrest continues.
Right. There's no sign of peace between the Palestinians and Israel. And up to last week, we thought, well, if there can't be peace between the Palestinians and Israel, there will never be peace in the Middle East until we saw some glimmers of hope when Donald Trump announced that through a phone call, he was able to bring together Bibi Netanyahu and the leader of the UAE for a very historic peace deal that will normalize relations between the two nations. This becomes the third peace deal between Arab nations and Israel. And the reason I mention this is because it's business as usual between the Palestinians and Israel with these fire balloons and other things being sent over. But at the same time, the region moves on. The region needs to progress, to mature. The Arab nations want the economic opportunity that they see in Israel. They want a vaccine to coronavirus. If Israel should be the one to have it, they want water irrigation technology, and they're not going to allow the Palestinians or the Iranian regime to keep them back. So, although this is bad news that we're continuing to see this awful foul play on the Gaza Strip, other things are happening in the region that give us some hope.
Now, a leading businessman from the United Arab Emirates said he was in talks with an Israeli airline about establishing direct flights between Israel and the UAE, hailing the recently announced normalization deal between the two countries as great opportunities for both nations.
Oh, it will be a wonderful opportunity. What a natural relationship that the two can have, both in terms of commerce, in terms of technology, in terms of development, and of course, tourism. People from both nations love to travel, love to tour the region, and they will have that reciprocity now. And it's only wonderful news, and I hope that more Arab nations will follow suit, and I'm sure that they will. This was kind of the icebreaker in warming tensions between Israel and its Arab neighbors. And I know that other countries will want that economic prosperity, they will want the opportunity, and they will sign on as well.
But let me ask you something. If things go south in a hurry, could we potentially see one of those planes being shot down?
Sure. Look, the Iranian regime has already stated that they are now consider the UAE a place where they need to focus the resistance as well. We just did a piece on this at the Foreign Desk today. About how the Iranian regime has reacted very poorly to this. They are very, very threatened by the fact that an Arab nation will team up with Israel. Look, the entire point of the Middle East is to curb Israel because of its brain power, because of its technology power, because of the ability that it has without the oil income, without that in revenue to prosper and to grow. And now they've teamed up with an Arab nation that is very rich and able to bring Israel into the Arab world in terms of technology and commerce. That is a huge threat to Iran, and we've seen the Iranians bring down liners before. Why not this time again? So I'm sure that both Israel, the UAE, they will be on very high security alert, particularly if these flights should take to the air.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens here, definitely. Lisa, at least 5 people were killed following a car bomb exploding at a hotel in Somalia, and at least 28 others were also hurt.
Right. It's another day in the African continent where we're seeing this growth in insurgencies, and it's always when you least expect it at this elite hotel on the water, on the shoreline, people enjoying themselves on holiday, summertime, and of course, very, very tragic with people dying and people getting very badly hurt. I'm sure that we will hear that either ISIS or one of the other insurgencies will take claim for this, and it will be just another notch on their belt. But all eyes on Africa. I think that's a country that's up for grabs right now, whether it's Russian influence or Chinese influence or terrorist influence. It is up for grabs, and we're seeing these influences grow daily.
Now, closer to home where you're located, at least in Southern California, let's talk about the heat wave you're experiencing right now, mid to upper 90s, and more of the wildfires. How bad is the situation right now in Southern California?
Right, and you're driving on the freeway. The other day I saw some of the fires in the distance, but nothing too bad just yet. In the past few years we've had uncontrollable fires where people have lost their homes. I mean, neighborhoods destroyed, acres and acres. So we're hoping that this doesn't happen this time around. And as you know, right now we are still under our second quarantine. Basically, we reopened and we shut down again here in Southern California. So More people are working from home, more people are at risk, more people are in their homes, and we have to be more vigilant than ever to keep these down.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.